This podcast will hopefully contain words or statements of obscene, pornographic, or immoral character. You have been warned.
Received dozens of emails from people that'll listen to the podcast. The podcast.
Wow,
The
it is
podcast.
pretty much. All right, so we're warmed up and ready to go. This is episode 58, and woo! I'm really excited about this one because I thought the one we did last week with the compilation one was really fun, and it's just really cool to talk about all the stuff we talked about because some of those things I hadn't listened to in a while, and I did end up going and listen to them, and it was just really fun. It was like a cool walk down memory lane, and so. What people don't know is last week's episode, we edited out a section where we started talking about soundtrack compilations. And we're like, let's stop, cut that, and we're just going to do like a whole separate episode.
I didn't cram for the soundtracks. I knew it was coming. I just didn't cram for it like I did. I just need to think.
Yeah. Because we, towards the end of that episode, we started talking about like a whole soundtrack section, and then we're like, no, let's just fucking stop and we'll cut this, and let's make this a whole episode. So that's where we're at today. Soundtrack compilations.
Okay. I got a story before we start this.
Okay.
So yesterday morning we got up and went out, and then we take the dog for a walk every fucking morning. So anyway, we come inside. Gavin was fucking passed out on the couch because he had a fucking I don't know if you've ever had it. I had it at my house like once, maybe twice, but he had a sleep paralysis episode.
Oh Jesus.
And it has fucked him up. Like apparently, like sleep paralysis, you're awake but can't move. So the weird thing is it was from the side, but that is neither here nor there. But I guess it's important because he was sleeping on his side facing the wall, so he couldn't see anything, nor could he move to adjust his head to hear anything. But he heard fucking, and this is like at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like fucking in the middle of the night, it's like 6. He heard somebody walk up the stairs. So Gavin's room is on the 3rd floor. He heard him come up the stairs and into your room.
Mm-hmm.
And they fucked around in there for a couple minutes, came back around, got in his bedroom, and got in bed with him. And then then he heard like scratches on the wall, and he yells at Cooper to stop it. And he all of a sudden he's kind of like he's unfrozen and can wake and look and and there was nothing there.
Wow.
I think it was the guys next door, and he was just like I think he was frozen, like the sleep paralysis. But I think a lot of the stores, because we have the body shop next door to us, I think a lot of those noises I can kind of say it's those guys getting it ready for the day and moving shit around and stuff. I mean, they're not really loud, but they can be, and they get started early so that they can leave early. But he was fucking freaked out.
I've never personally experienced what it would be like, I guess, textbook sleep paralysis, but I definitely have family members who have had episodes of that. My sister in particular, she's had that thing. I forget what they call it. What the like scientific. Yeah, like basically where like your sleep paralysis, but then like this crazy like witch ghost thing comes in.
It's
like
old hag syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, like my sister has had that, and it like fucked her up for a while, dude. Like honestly, it took her like months to sort of like get over that and back into like normal sleeping again because she was so terrified to go to sleep.
Yeah, it was he. So every time something goes wrong upstairs, something went wrong because we get up in the morning and fucking Gavin's asleep on the couch. And so he totally, we
Gotcha.
were like,
Yeah, I wasn't sure where the whole sleeping on the couch part was like connected to this. Okay.
yeah. So anytime something goes wrong, like the fucking smoke detector starts beeping, he won't fix it. He just goes downstairs. So it was like the last time we found him, we needed new battery for the fucking smoke detector. So he went downstairs and
Gotcha.
it waited till we got up, and then I went and got him batteries. But yeah, I didn't want to sidetrack the fucking whatchamabobber, our comp part 2, but
Yeah.
I wanted to fucking throw that out before I got, because it was awesome. Like somebody was telling him that the house is haunted, we're like, no, totally do not fucking believe that at all.
Yeah.
I was like, because we are way too dicky and way too into it and would look for shit like that.
you're like, this is not scaring us. This is making us more excited that we live here.
yeah. That's definitely. I mean, if you ask everybody if there's a ghosty cat in our basement, most people will say yes.
Yeah.
Because the fucking all the cats are like really weird about the basement. Like they want to, and they act as if they want to get to something in the basement. But besides that, so I guess we are saying yes, we have Bill the cat. But besides that, nothing big and scary that scratches on walls.
Bill the cat, you know its name?
Well, so when we moved in, we found a fucking piece of slate, I think from 1918, and I think it says Bill the cat scratched into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's where we got his name.
Okay.
So we think it's Bill the cat.
That's actually pretty cool. Was it like actually, was the slate like on the floor of the basement, like he's buried there?
it was outside, like
Oh,
around the
outside.
house.
Oh, okay.
See, I'll have to go take a picture of it. I'll post it up.
Yeah. Bill the cat. All right.
And I was stalling because I had to think of soundtracks. I was ready at one time, but not now.
Oh, that's
but
fine.
You start with your first one.
The first one is one that we had talked about last week. And I'd say if you're a punk rock person, this one's probably on most people's radars as one of the better of the like punk style soundtracks, but would be the Repo Man soundtrack.
Yes. That one, I thought you were going somewhere else first. But now that one, I think, introduced us to Black Flag. So there seemed to be a core group of bands that made every fucking soundtrack, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like Circle Jerks, Dead Kennedy, Black Flag, maybe the Germs. I'm trying to think. But like you could count on those, at least Circle Jerks and Black Flag, Dead Kennedys being in a movie that was about punk rock.
Yeah.
So do you remember 21 Jump Street when Agent Orange was introduced?
I do not remember that.
They had a punk, what do you want to say, episode, and they had to go undercover as punks.
Okay.
And the band that they followed around was like Agent Orange, where they used Agent Orange's music for the episode.
Okay. I did not know that.
And apparently it was Johnny Depp's suggestion because he came out to be a rock star, and I guess that was one of the bands he was into.
All right. Well, cool. I always love it when I learn something from the podcast, because I definitely did not know any of that. But just to go back to the Repo Man has Iggy Pop, Black Flag, Suicidal Tendencies, Circle Jerks, The Plugs, Burning Sensations, Fear, and a band called Juicy Bananas. A cool story that I have about the Repo Man soundtrack. I was pretty familiar with that when I was younger and everything, but I hadn't listened to it in a while. And when Trisha and I very first started dating, she came and picked me up one day, and this was like it was like very early on when we very, very first started dating. And I was in the passenger seat of her car. She's like, I have some tapes in the in the glove compartment if you want to find a tape to listen to, because this was, you know, her car still had a tape deck at the time. And
okay.
so I opened up the glove box and was like rooting through her tapes, and she only had like maybe 3 or 4 tapes in there. And one of them was the Repo Man soundtrack. And I remember just being like, oh man, that's so cool you have that. Like, I knew she was into some punk rock stuff and everything, but just the fact that that was in her car, I thought that was pretty cool. And that's her favorite movie soundtrack of all time.
Really?
Yeah. And so we put that in, and I'll never forget it. Like, whatever we were doing, we drove around enough that day that we ended up listening to the whole thing. And dude, she knew like every fucking word of every song on that fucking soundtrack. Even shit I didn't know, like some of the songs that were bands I wasn't super familiar with from that comp. And yeah,
Right.
she knew like every single fucking word. And that was always like one of the things that happened early on in our relationship that was like an impress upon me kind of thing. But like, it wasn't even like she was trying to do that. Like
Right.
look how punk and cool I am. But yeah, so that was definitely pretty awesome.
Okay, so I think we can't go too far without mentioning probably the Suburbia soundtrack as well.
Yeah, of course.
My big takeaway from that was fucking DI, because they did the Richard Hung
Yeah,
himself.
Richard Hung himself. Yep.
Yeah, and that was the big one. Look, I'm trying to look it up, but it's not quick enough, and I can't spell right now because of my ghetto hand thing that I've made is throwing me the fuck off. But I'm pretty certain TSOL was in that as well. I think Code Blue, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, I actually just rewatched Suburbia recently, and
Was it horrible as I remember?
no, it's good. I like that movie, but there is like one of the scenes where they go to the club, and Di is actually playing, and there's definitely some cool close-ups of him singing the song, and you know they do Richard Hung himself.
So, have you listened to DI recently?
I mean, yes, I would say that I listened to DI a few times throughout the year, definitely.
Anything new?
No. I'm a big fan of, my favorite record by them is the was it Horse
Bites, Dog Cries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's really my go-to. I like all their records to some degree, but that one's definitely, if I want a DI fix, that's the one I'm going to put on.
There's really 4 songs featured in that, which is TSOL, The Vandals, Legend of Pat Brown, which is fucking
Mhm.
awesome song, and Richard Hung himself. Those are the songs that are fucking listed, which is crazy because I always saw that as a big, what do you want, statement piece film that was about, even though it didn't talk to me because I didn't live on the fucking in an abandoned house and fucking do drugs and shit like that. But I mean, that was kind of like one of those landmark films and made a big, impact on everybody. But now to walk away and look at it, and there was like 4 fucking songs featured in it. It's crazy as shit.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that movie.
I want to circle back about the DI.
Yeah.
Is I swear to God, I think their production has gotten worse. I went and listened to new DI
Mm-hmm.
and then was like, fuck this. And I went back and listened to that album because like the production, if you listen to like the new DI album or the newest, I was like, what the fuck happened? And Casey's voice back in the day had a lot of, which sounded like to have effects and stuff on it to kind of like give him his sound. And they're not using them anymore, or at least doesn't sound like it. And it is just like a far cry from like those albums were, to me, were always super polished and well produced. And then like this is the new one, I was like, oh, I'm going to go back and listen to an old one. Like it was really not cool.
That's sad. I really like DI. They're definitely a top tier band for me, but they're not a band that I have like followed any like what they've been doing the last 20 years or whatever. But a cool little DI side story. Like the first sort of like real club show that I went to when I moved to San Diego was DI.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
I saw them. They played this little tiny beach club about 15 minutes from my house. And I remember we were still like, we were still sort of like shell shocked, man. Like we were like, what the fuck? We're like living in this big city now and like trying to figure out how to get around and just like where everything is. And, we're just still like so in the mindset of just figuring things out. Like where do we, like, what's the closest grocery store? Like just everything was so new. And I remember a friend of mine saying, like, he's like, hey, you like DI, don't you? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, they're actually playing this weekend. I'm going to go if you want to tag along. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I remember being so excited about, it was just such a moment of, man, it's crazy that I'm like here and living in Southern California now. And the first band that like I'm going to get to see is like DI. So it was just this whole moment of this is going to cement me as like officially being like West Coast now. Is like going to see DI within like the first 2 months of living out here is like how like it doesn't get any fucking cooler than that. And they were awesome too. And so that's a really cool memory I have of DI. They were the first band I saw in San Diego.
So I just have to say, per our last episode, and us starting this stupid discussion about the voluptuous horrors of Karen Black.
Okay.
I have once again fallen back in love with probably one of the just shittiest bands possible. They make me happy. I run around singing Oh Diane's, I think, the second song on there. It makes me happy. It's like so stupid and they're so horrible. Mowed the grass to it.
That's awesome. Well, that's what I was saying. That's what was so cool about last week is it brought up so many things I had forgotten about that were things I really like to listen to. So this week after has been really cool. I've been listening to a lot of the stuff we talked about. Karen Black is on my list of things to revisit because I was saying that I want to listen to that again with my mindset of now to see just like how it resonates with me. I definitely remember basically what that band sounded like for the most part, but I also have that Gas Huffer album you mentioned on my list as well, because that's like the second time you've mentioned that.
It's like Nothing But Beautiful Music or something like that.
Yeah. So I have those two things on my list of things to kind of like get into over the next few days. So hopefully by next episode, I'll be able to report back on the voluptuous, was it Sounds of Karen Black?
The voluptuous horrors of
Karen Black. Yeah.
So I know you had mentioned a while back about like what's Marky Ramone's version of doing the Ramones songs.
Yeah, the Blitzkrieg.
So like Gas Huffer to me was like whatever shot in the ass I always felt that the Ramones needed to get them to a point where I was like, yeah, and I was really jazzed about them. That record to me has it.
Okay.
Like I said, it is a fucking Ramones ripoff album. Not like the fucking Borsa Sprinkler just doing the fucking whole album.
Right.
It's like done like in their style, and it's really good. In fact, I don't know if I listened to Gas Huffer past. Have you ever gotten an album where you didn't want to listen to anything else by him because you were afraid it was gonna fuck it up?
I'm sure that I probably have albums like that. I can't think of any off the top of my head though.
Like they were definitely one, and because somebody had mentioned it was Ramon that said something about how that doesn't really sound like them. And then I was like, well, fuck, I will just listen to this fucking album then because I don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, moving on to the soundtracks.
Yeah, what's your next soundtrack?
Not all of the ones I have on my list are punk related, by the way.
Did you do Footloose?
I did not do Footloose, but That's really funny. In the same vein, though, this was not on my list, but I will also say if we want to go that route, we'll throw in the Top Gun soundtrack as well.
Besides the Berlin song, I guess Kenny Loggins, I can't name you any other songs off of that. Like Footloose, if I thought about it, I could probably knock out at least half of them just sitting here not cheating. But I'm not doing it. You're looking at me, I'm like, no. Almost paradise.
Oh my God.
That's Mike Wilson and Ann Wilson and Mike Reno from Loverboy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Pretty much all these soundtracks that I've picked out, I will say not all of them are ones that I have listened to outside of the movie itself. But the soundtrack, it like enhanced my viewing of the movie and made it become one of my favorite movies because of the soundtrack. So I do own some of these soundtracks, but then some of them I don't own, and I'm really only familiar with them from the movie and only ever hear these songs when I do listen to the movie. But one of my favorite soundtracks, based on how it does make the movie better, in my opinion, even though I feel it's one of the best movies of all time, and I think is my favorite all-time movie, is Karate Kid soundtrack.
Yes, there's silence on the
Yeah,
field.
so much silence.
What are you talking about?
No way, dude. I'm telling you, the Karate Kid soundtrack is amazing.
What?
Yeah.
What is on the? Do you have the track pulled up, or are you just talking in general? I don't even remember there being songs in the fucking Karate Kid.
Yeah, dude. Well, first of all, come on. There's
All right, go ahead.
You're the Best, performed by Joe Esposito.
Oh my God, that's a fucking horrible. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, that's like the theme song, like the end fight scene theme song. Yeah. I mean, come on, it doesn't get any better than that song. That's like the epitome of 80s cheese. It's fucking awesome. And there's like just a lot of really cool songs on there. There's a song by a band called Broken Edge called No Shelter, which is a really fucking cool song on there. The Moment of Truth by Survivor. There's Cruel Summer by Bananarama.
All right, well, we don't talk shit on them. We like them.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that the Karate Kid soundtrack is a really solid soundtrack, and I'm sticking to that. I don't care what you say.
Sadly, I have the fucking Denise Williams, Let's Hear It for the Boy in my head from the fucking Footloose soundtrack going in my head right now. So it's ruining everything.
That's hilarious. I don't deny that the Footloose soundtrack is pretty bitchin', but I'll say that I think the Karate Kid soundtrack is better.
So I had you kind of blew mine out of the water because you went in a different direction, which I'm cool with. Because I had the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack.
Very good one.
That had the 45 Grave, the Cramps, and TSOL. Your boy Rocky Erickson is on it. The Dam's on it. And that was a good one. That introduced me to 45 Grave, but not in like, because I didn't know who it was. And it wasn't until after I bought the CD, was it Autopsy? I think. No, it's not Autopsy. Oh shit, I can't. Sleep in Safety, I think, is the one with that on it. And I was like, oh shit, I know that song. But what's funny is there are two versions of the Do You Want to Party song, and the original one sounds nothing like that. Like it's very much more punk, very much more upbeat for what it is. It might be mid-tempo, but if you listen to the fucking soundtrack version of that song, it's slow and kind of a little bit more grindy than the mid-tempo version was on the original like demo tapes and stuff. But that one was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that I definitely forgot about, that should have been on my list. So I'm glad you didn't forget that one, because that is a really good one. That's actually one that I typically, if I go record shopping, I always do look at the soundtrack section. And that is one that I have been kind of having the back of my mind to keep an eye out for.
That would be a badass one. I have not. Our record shops, I don't know. Once again, I think I bitched about this before. It's like the record shops now, and I spend a lot of time on eBay, so I can't bitch about it. But the fact that like everybody has a general idea what things are worth and what's kind of cool, it's like it sucks.
Yep.
Because I feel like back in the day, you could roll in and find like fucking treasures for like, $3 or $4. You're like, fuck you, take it in. I mean, I guess, should I feel bad that I thought was doing that? No, because you should know what you have. But then the backside of it is, now that people know what they have or what they think they have, now all of a sudden it's like, fuck, I'm not paying that money for that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but yeah, I mean, Discogs has basically fucking destroyed record shopping for finding like cool deals.
Dude. Yeah, there are things that like I'll look at them and I'm like, I can't even like justify like it. I was like, I could buy it, but I'm like, it's not. I can't justify spending the money.
Yeah.
Like it's not. I don't listen to records enough to spend the money to get them. Like it's definitely nuts. I didn't think about them because I eBay everything, but you're right. Discogs definitely a better place to go check for fucking prices.
The next one I have, I think is like a pretty cool one because it sort of rides the line between the absurdity of my Karate Kid choice, but also has like punk rock side though simultaneously, is the Thrashin' soundtrack.
Oh motherfucker! I thought you were going rad.
No, but that's another good one. That's another good one.
Send me an angel.
Yeah, Send Me an Angel. Great song.
That's on the fucking rad one. What's in Thrashin'? I have watched Thrashin'. Gleaming the Cube, I'd have never watched.
Yeah, so I've seen Gleaming the Cube. I don't recall if the soundtrack to that one is any good or not. I'm not sure what's on there. But the Thrashin' soundtrack is actually, it's legit. It's a, say what you will about the movie. I'm a fan of the movie. I've always liked it. I know that like it gets some hate. We've talked about it on here before, but the soundtrack's really good. But one thing that I did not know, and I did learn for the first time today, is because I brought all these up so I could recall exactly what all songs are on and stuff. But the Thrashin' theme song
I just saw
is performed in the movie by Meatloaf, which I did not know that.
Phenomenal.
Because it's, I think
God.
the Thrashin' theme song is actually a really cool song. And the fact that now I know that Meatloaf performed it is kind of fucking hilarious.
So I think the big takeaway from this soundtrack for me was the introduction. Like I really liked Screaming Sirens, but the big like takeaway was actually fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Like I think it wasn't like their first appearance, but this is like where, like I remember getting this in fucking 9th grade and fucking going out and buying Freaky Style because of this soundtrack.
Yeah. Thrashin' was definitely 100% my first introduction to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I definitely remember thinking like, what is this? Like, this is fucking cool. And they were like, it was back when they still wore kind of like crazy costumes and shit. And that I had never seen anything like that. I mean, I was already kind of listening to some punk rock stuff, and I sort of was like already in the mix of knowing kind of what was up with some shit. But when I saw that, I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Like, I had never seen a band sort of wear costumes quite like that and sound like they did. And I was definitely very intrigued by them in that movie. It wasn't to the level that it made me go out to buy anything, but I was into it.
I think because it was so different.
Yeah, it really was.
Is where the more they progress, the less I like them. I guess is a nice way to say it. I mean, they have songs that I like, yes, but most of them I'm not.
I'm the same way. I don't particularly love the earliest stuff. It's okay. I think well, not I think, I know for a fact, my favorite Red Hot Chili Peppers album is definitely Mother's Milk. I think Mother's Milk was sort of like the pinnacle of, they got better at making songs, but they were still like punk edged though. And then
Right.
pretty much everything after that is when they sort of lost me. And again, there's some songs here and there over their career that I'm like, oh, I can fuck with that song a little bit, but I don't know. It's Mother's Milk for me if I want to listen to them.
I don't think I ever have urges. I mean, to listen to, like, I listened to them when I was younger, and that was about as far as it went. I just kind of, I don't know. I don't know. Something didn't click, and I don't know what it was. It could have been me just being so anti. I mean, I would assume the songs off Mother's Milk are the ones that I like the radio songs.
They had one or two kind of hits off of that. I think they got radio play, but it wasn't until the next one, I think, is when they really started becoming like a radio band.
Butt Sex Magic.
That would have been way cooler, but it's Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
you say tomato, I say tomato.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, they probably wouldn't have, that album maybe wouldn't have been quite as successful if they would have named it that. Or it may have been more successful. I don't know.
How fucking awesome would that be? I don't know. I think I found us our new fucking album.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no reason we can't like spoof that album cover and call it Butt Sex Magic.
That would be awesome, but it would be gross because that's who want the tongues.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally.
Dude.
No, it's perfect. It'd be like a little
sphincter.
Yeah,
right
like a little donut on the end of all of our tongues.
Oh, I can't wait for Matt to show that to the girls.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, my kids expect nothing less of me. In fact,
Yeah, I'm sure they would just look at it and roll their eyes and walk away.
Pretty much.
They're immune at this point. Do you have a new one? Do you have your next one?
I do. And this is another one. Actually, this is one that I don't think I tried to watch it and turned it the fuck off because I don't know. And especially with Jean saying that Penelope Ann Spears fucking staged most of the shit in it. That like in the middle when a lot of that shit was based, but the decline of Western civilization.
Yeah.
Like I started to listen to it, but dude, there were so many fucking, I don't know where people got to watch the fucking movie at though. Like I worked at a fucking video store during the prime time videos and we had Decline of Western Civilization too, but the punk one never showed up.
Oh, really?
But yeah, but I mean, it had like the Germs. Actually, this is going to lead me into a side thing. Like the Germs and X and Black Flag and Circle Jerks. Once again, this is like our fucking hub of bands. Yeah. And this is why I think maybe it's key that these bands are where they are now because last week's episode makes more sense because you have all these bands that keep recycling through the movies all of a sudden on sound or on comps with bands that aren't in the movies, and all of a sudden it kind of opens you up. So one feeds the other, and Fear's on there and a couple other bands. But like I love the fucking second one, but I've tried to watch the first one, the punk one, a couple times and just fail miserably. Like it just doesn't work for me.
I actually watched both of those like within the last month. I watched them back to back because I hadn't seen them in a while. And I like the punk one. I think it's cool. I think I like the metal one better overall. But well, one of my favorite parts about the first one is all the Black Flag footage, because that's like my favorite era of Black Flag. So it's cool to see them perform with the version of the band that's my favorite. So that was pretty cool. Some of the X stuff in that is like kind of hard to watch. I don't know. It just gets a little boring, and I don't know. It's like they're trying hard to be punk or something.
And that's what I think when I started watching, I guess whatever happens in the first 5 minutes, like it felt like they were trying to be like it was fake. It just didn't feel right. And it was just like, what the fuck am I watching? And it was like, I'm gonna watch Monster Quest instead. Because it feels more real than this. Like it totally it's one of those, it just burns you. You're like, I throw it and I look at like Another State of Mind, which apparently was all staged as well. But that one felt a little bit more realistic. Like, I don't know. And I guess watching 2 and knowing 2 a little bit better, I kind of expected a certain level, and I don't think I was getting it with 1.
Well, the second one, man, I gotta say that after watching that again, 5 minutes into it, my thought was, where are these people now? Like the ultimate. This would be the ultimate. 40 years later, 35 years later, like, where are all these people now? Like, what did they end up doing with their life? Because 9 out of the 10 people that they interview in that movie all were people that went into obscurity pretty quickly. Like there's like really only a couple people they interview who are people that went on to have sort of like a successful music career outside of like the 80s metal scene. So yeah, like what happened to all those people? I would love to know.
I'm writing a note. I almost think I want to like dive into that.
Because there's definitely a lot of people in that they interview that their sort of like attitude on life was pretty grim. Just saying stuff like, if I don't make it, I'll probably be living on the street within a week, or like I'll probably be dead before I'm 30. There was like a lot of that kind of stuff. And then there was people that, the one guy in particular, they had, like, what are you going to do if your band doesn't make it? And he was basically like, oh, we're going to make it. There's no option but for us to make it. Like he was just like so confident. And I'm like, I don't think they were a band that really made it that I know of. I forget which band it was, but
oh my God, this might have to be a movie night project. So we're throwing around this concept, everybody, that we're going to do. Basically, it would be cool. Like, we wanted to do a movie night and but we were thinking about doing shows like old Bomb Threat show or old Craven Moorhead show with the band, and kind of just watch everybody and listen to our reactions to how stupid we looked back then. But this might be just as cool to have a fucking sit down, especially with fucking the encyclopedia of fucking metal Gene plugged into this, because I think he would be able to fill in a lot of holes for that one and probably the other ones as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of Gene, I'm going to move on to my next choice, because I know he and I are both big fans of this movie and the soundtrack. This is another one of my all-time favorite movies, and the soundtrack is fucking bitchin'. But the River's Edge soundtrack.
Who else is on that soundtrack? Like, I'm pulling it up now.
So there's a lot of Metal Blade Records bands on here. There's a Fates Warning song. There's a bunch of Slayer songs. There's a Hallows Eve song. There's also a song by the Wipers. There's a band called Burning Spear. But yeah, that's a awesome movie and killer soundtrack. And like how they utilize the songs in the movie are also just really great, because a lot of the Slayer is being played when they're riding around with Crispin Glover in his like Mad Maxed out fucking Volkswagen Bug. So it's just like, it really puts you in that moment, man. It's like, it really just makes you feel like you're jumping in the car with some metalhead in like 1985.
So what's funny about that is like I remember that I actually had that movie set aside to watch, but like I remember getting a catalog from them, and I was like, that's why I was so certain that it was that on that label, because like I think I still have some of the shit like catalogs and stuff.
Oh, do you? That's cool.
Like I would 3-hole punch the shit and put them in a binder.
No way.
Like the stuff from JFA, like I remember punching that and having that, and like the Enigma. Jesus Christ, I can't say it today. It's fucking killing me.
Yeah, that's cool that you did that. That you 3-hole punch stuff and stuck it in a binder. That's pretty genius, actually. Or it's genius that you just had the foresight to do that, because like I feel like that's something most people, if they had shit like that, it's just like that's just shit you throw away.
Right? Yeah, it was weird. I don't know what the thought process was in it, but I honestly, if I've gotten rid of it, it's been recently. Like I think if I dug around, I might be able to pull stuff out.
That's cool.
It's fucking nuts. I don't know if I have any more. Well, I did. Oh, I just wrote it down, but I think you'd have to look at the soundtrack from Another State of Mind. Not only like that, those fucking both those albums are fucking phenomenal. The Youth Brigade one and the fucking Social Distortion one, but it put a face to like Minor Threat and kind of helped, I think. I'm not saying it helped kickstart the movement, but I think it helped spread the word and gave it even a little bit more of an insight into the straight edge world.
Sure. And I mean, you know, I think it's hard nowadays we're so immersed in media and just video, like video is just so commonplace now with everything. And back then it wasn't at all. I mean, really, like that video was probably like one small insight into what was going on, and that's all people had. Like you want to learn about punk rock? Well, I hope you can get your hands on that video, because if you can't, you're probably not going to fucking know about it.
Dude, and it was of a better quality, because like Phil used to have all like the flip side like VHSs, and it was all like somebody filmed them underwater. Even though they didn't have Nokia phones, they were about at that quality. Like it was just horrible.
Yeah.
But it was like the only way to put like names with faces.
Yeah.
And because like you're saying, we're so driven now with media and like, you know, that presence, and you know, it's like
There's something you want to look up and you can't find a video about it. That's more rare than anything now.
that's the part that blows your mind. And you're right. That to me is harder to believe. Like, I guess being the opposite way of seeing shit, but now it's not being able to see shit.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't I find, how is there no footage of that?
Yeah. Another video series though from back then too, that I have, the Black Flag episode of that or whatever, is the Target videos. They were pretty good. But generally speaking, in the early 80s, mid 80s, you're kind of on your own to figure shit out, or you were getting something from a friend. It wasn't like you could just hop on the internet and be like, oh, show me a Black Flag video or whatever, and it just pop right up in your face in 2 seconds.
Yeah, it is crazy.
I have a couple more, but though another one that is more non-punk related, that I guess would kind of fit into the Karate Kid sort of theme. Karate Kid Footloose theme, but I really, really like the soundtrack to the Terminator movie. It's just really cool, and some of the songs that are in that movie I really like. They're not songs I know about the band other than the particular songs. But the Terminator is also one of my favorite all-time movies, and I just always really liked the soundtrack to that. And really the only other thing I kind of wanted to bring up as like honorable mentions, I guess, that are also not really necessarily punk related, but I will say that these choices, more than any of the other ones we've talked about today, are ones that actually got me into bands that I wasn't familiar with before. So I know that was like a big part of what we were discussing on the previous episode, like sort of what comps actually helps you to discover a certain band. And the like a lot of the Stanley Kubrick soundtracks and like all the Tarantino soundtracks, all of those soundtracks definitely have turned me on to bands I hadn't heard before, or that maybe I heard and didn't hear like a particular song by them.
I think you can credit James Gunn the same way. Like the fucking movies he does with like the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Okay.
like they're all soundtrack driven. And the song goes, he knows the song prior to the fucking scene. Like it is like he does the same thing Tarantino does, where he builds the music's where the scene's built around the music. And it's just, and he does like a lot of obscure older stuff that you might have knew of, but never gave it the time to listen to.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
sidetrack
that's
you.
perfect. I'm not as familiar with that stuff, so I'll check that out. But in my opinion, I think the Pulp Fiction soundtrack is one of the best put together soundtracks of all time. Like, there's not a bad song on that, and it's so diverse in
Yes.
even the sequencing of it, like how they put the songs together, how that whole soundtrack just flows. I think it's like one of the most perfect soundtracks ever assembled. And I also feel that to me personally, there's no other soundtrack that if I listen to it, I can totally watch the movie in my head as I'm listening to it.
Right. No, I'm all in. I mean, they're definitely, like, I cheated and just looked up some, and there's a bunch that I think we've missed and we can come back to.
This doesn't have to be the be all end all of this discussion. We can definitely come back to it another time. But I think another honorable mention for me would be, and I guess this borderlines on maybe not so much soundtrack, but maybe like score as well. But I love all the like 60s and 70s, like Morricone spaghetti Western stuff. So like that's just, I mean, that shit to me that's in there with like the Kubrick stuff of like 2001 Space Odyssey soundtrack, like Clockwork Orange, like all the classical music, and just, man, there's no other movies where the music is more important than those movies. Like if you like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, if you take away the Morricone music and put something else in, that movie is not as fucking cool.
No, even in hour 3.
Yeah.
That bitch is long, but no, you're absolutely right. Like he definitely scored that, like that genre, like to perfectly, and I think helped make them what they were.
Yeah, definitely. So I love all that stuff, man. I like I said, when I go record shopping, I always go to the soundtrack section. That's something that's just always on my list of where, like, as soon as I go to a record store I've never been in before, I immediately go to the soundtrack section. Sometimes even before I look at other shit. Just because I feel like soundtrack albums are still they're like the last frontier of finding deals.
That could be true.
Yeah.
That one I will buy. Oh my god, that's funny. That's a great way to look at it.
Because I've definitely picked up some stuff that I got for like $5. It's probably would get more than that, based on Discog prices.
Right. Fucking bastards. Yeah, I know, and I'm still on my quest to find your AMP records.
Oh yeah.
I had to save that shit in my eBay search, waiting for it to show up.
I definitely listened to that all this week. I have it in the car right now. I listened to disc 1 in the house that same day, as a matter of fact, because I got so hyped talking about it. And I've listened to disc 2 and disc 3 this week in the car. So yeah, that's a good one. I hope you eventually find it.
Yeah. Don't you worry. The eBays don't let me down.
And what's cool is that discussion also. I remember thinking it was so funny that you got so excited about that band, the Clit Cops. And
I did listen to them.
yeah, and that one song is actually so cool. So I was like, man, I actually hadn't gone and checked them out outside of that comp. And I went and checked them out. And dude, their albums are cool, but the music is cool. But they have the most killer artwork.
Oh my god,
the
dude.
artwork was amazing. It's like very like mid to late era Black Flag style artwork. Like it kind of really reminded me of like that Pettibone stuff.
The Pettibone.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, I think this is probably a good time to stop. I think we got through at least some of my favorites, and you bringing up Return of the Living Dead, I'm so glad that didn't get forgotten because that's a top tier one right there.
Awesome. Well, on that note,
cool. Well, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you guys next time.
Woo! Party
Later.
Wayne's World.
This podcast was brought to you by Potty Mouth Records. Contact us at pottymouthrecords@gmail.com and find us on the web at pottymouthrecords.rocks. That's .rocks.
That was way better than I expected. That was awesome.